2, 1. Hello, everyone. 3, 2, 1. I hope that everyone can hear us and everyone can see us. Glad to see you, our dear listeners, our dear viewers, and welcome to our special episode of the Methodological Podcast. My name is Catherine Osoy, and I'm going to host today's meeting. And now let me introduce our wonderful experts. Today, here you can see Marco, content creator, webinar host, and international teacher. Welcome to our podcast. And Katerina, TTC mentor, assessor, and premium teacher. Glad to see you both. How are you today? How are you feeling, Marco?
Morning, Kate. Doing great. Great. Thank you. And thank you for having me back.
Oh, glad to hear that you're all right. Katerina, how are you today?
Yeah. Again, absolutely fine. Yeah, I'm happy to see you all here today too.
Oh, glad to hear that. I'm also glad to see you, glad to hear you that everything is fine. And our dear listeners and viewers, one more time, we're glad to see you, not to see you actually, but we're glad that you are here with us. Don't be shy, don't forget to send your comments. Actually, I already see that you're sending your hello and hi. Nice. And today, actually, we have a really cool topic to discuss, because we will talk about the speed of covering courses, lessons, materials, and so on. So that is why let's not hesitate, because we're talking about speed today, and let's get it started. And the first question will be for you, our dear teachers. Feel free to share your ideas and to send your answers to my question. I want to ask you if you have any students who either hurry up with materials or courses, or vice versa, easily get stuck on one topic or on one lesson, etc. If yes, please send plus. If no, minus. We will be really glad to see your comments. And while you're answering, I have a question to our experts. I'd like to ask you how often you hear the question, how much time do I need to learn English, or like something like that? What is your answer, Marco?
Oh, I get this question more often than I care to count. And I get this question both as a teacher in my professional capacity and as a language enthusiast, as a polyglot. New students usually will come to class with a very preconceived idea of how long it's going to take them to learn a language and by when they want to be proficient. And two typical examples of questions that I usually get, or statements that I get rather from students, are, I'm traveling abroad in the next month and I want to be fluent. Or I'm going to take my IELTS next month and I have to pass. And they tend to forget that learning a new language is not just vocabulary or grammar, but there's a whole plethora of mechanics involved. It's like a building. It's not just a wall with some paint and it's pretty. You know, there's a steel foundation, there are bricks and mortar, cement, pipes, wires. All of those needs need to come together before we can make the building visible.
Marco, I like your metaphors.
Thank you. I tend to speak in metaphors a lot.
That's cool, yeah. So, Katerina, how often do you hear this kind of questions from students? And what is your answer?
Basically, I couldn't say it better after that. So I mean, like, I agree with that, absolutely. And yeah, I have this question very often too. I guess that is like, I am the pre-intermediate student. In 2 weeks, I have IELTS. I need to have 8.5. Is that possible? When should we start? What should we do? So I'm ready right now. So yeah, of course, we have this question and dealing with exams and dealing with like everyday life goals. What is my answer? I think now I will use this idea with walls. So that's really cool one to describe. Really, that's awesome. Yeah, but I try to explain this idea of the basis and, like that we need to be really, really attentive in the beginning of our way. So yeah, I try to be philosophic here.
Okay, so Katrina, thank you for answer as well. By the way, our teachers are also sending pluses, and they say that, yeah, we have it. Somebody has only one student like that. But anyway, everyone in their experience has met this kind of students. So actually, Katrina, that example which you told us about that pre-intermediate level student with interest and ambitions about IELTS is interesting. But let's talk about some more realistic goals. Yeah, and I'd like to ask you about one case. Let's imagine that I have a student who is pre-intermediate, and my student needs to reach intermediate level. And in the course, there are about 70 lessons, like in our new general, yeah? And can I tell and guarantee that we'll reach the goal in 70 meetings? Marco, what can you tell us about that?
We can never really guarantee this accomplishment. There are other factors to consider for sure. There are simple things like the student's schedule, the frequency of classes, the dedication to homework, and also other language-focused activities. Then we also need to consider that we don't always complete a full lesson in the 50 minutes, which is founded on the student's confidence in the topic, and the digestion of the matter that they are given.
Okay, so, but anyway, is it easy to get stuck in some material, on some topic, on some lesson? Are there any chances that it can happen, Katerina?
Yes, sure. We may stuck usually on any stage of our lessons and with any materials, because it depends a lot on the student. And it may be like, this idea when you have an absolutely soulmate student and you are so involved in this kind of a student-teacher relationship, and you have a lot of talk about. And yeah, that's the first reason why we may stuck and where we may stuck there with the materials, and like we may completely stop the lesson, generally start speaking a lot. But the other side is like more methodological, I guess, when a student has whatever problems with whatever materials or skills. So here we may also stuck with the material and start like pushing him in one and the same goal or target or material as well. So yeah, basically there are a lot of reasons why we may sometimes be confused and when we may like prolong the lessons and stuck there.
Okay, so yeah, as I see, there are a lot of different reasons why we can struggle, and why we can have some problems anywhere in the course. But anyway, what is the appropriate amount of time needed to cover the topic, for example, or the course? Like, when should we as teachers start to worry? What we sometimes do, actually. Marco, what about your answer?
That is so true, so true. Again, I say it depends on the student, of course. As I mentioned in our previous podcast, I go with my metaphor again, we merely drivers on this journey. The student will dictate at what speed we drive and all the destinations we need to stop at before arriving at the final destination. We need to think of factors like critical words, important highlights, etc. Generally with students, intermediate and above, it's not too difficult to complete a lesson in the allocated 50 minutes. However, there are times when we will find that the student isn't grasping an explanation or usage of a specific language point, and a little more time needs to be spent on it. It's a good time to also mention our progress check. If by the first progress check, you find that the student is still struggling and unable to apply what has been learned, or in this case, what has been taught, because it obviously hasn't been learned yet, then it's time to have a reassuring chat with the student and suggest a change in level or a grammar-focused class. We don't have to follow the unit per se. Yeah, and just remember to reassure them that this is beneficial for their journey.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, thank you for answering. I agree 100% with that. But what to do if I do feel that we are spending too much time on one topic, or it has been a couple of years of studying one course, the same level? Like, what about these cases? Katrina, what about your idea?
Well, I guess that the highlight of today's conversation is like it depends on the student a lot. And we first of all we see we check the students' goals, and as the instruments we can use here, we may offer to change the topic because it may be like too interesting, or opposite, not that interesting. So the conversation starts being like, yes, what else? And so that's also like that improves that like decreases the speed, and not very good thing to be done. We may offer the topic, we may change the grammar, the whatever target material we have here. We may add something new, offer new activities, not only material. So if we still feel that we need to continue developing that skill exactly, let's say the goal is about speaking, so we have to push the student to speak a lot, but we still may change the activities and offer him not role playing anymore, for example, but retelling, or like a phone call imitation. So like be variable there, and that will improve the mood and the speed and the atmosphere in general.
So, as I see, changes are always good, yeah, if you know how to do that. Okay, Katerina, one more question for you. How can I understand that my students and I are too fast when covering the materials?
That's a really cool question, because sometimes we feel like, okay, the speed is so cool, we are so fine, good team, but basically not always. Sometimes we need to have additional check of knowledge and see how well our student may use this material in other cases, like not only like, hi, how are you doing today, but also maybe add more questions, personal questions through the conversation, and see if our student may react with a new material, may use new vocabulary. That's the really good sign that everything goes well. But if we see that, ouch, the same words that we have heard already many times, like not good signature, not good sign here. Also, we may ask him literally like, how well is he with materials on YouTube or whatever other resources we may offer him to use without platform. So yeah, basically, again, it depends on the student, of course, but still we need to ask him first of all.
Okay, so then I got this idea. Marco, I'd like to know your opinion now. Is it actually really bad that like we have a high speed of covering the topic, the material, course, whatever? Are there any advantages of that?
Kate, I wouldn't say that it's bad, but I would say rather that it's a deterrent. We as teachers are guiding the class. So we tend to sometimes, when we find that the student has a pretty decent level, we get excited, we get motivated, maybe for the wrong reason, and we tend to just rush through the class. Like, okay, we can do this. The student's with me, We also tend to forget that sometimes we forget to not use close-ended questions. So we just go, did you understand this? And they'll just say yes. So we need to be careful with that. We also need to remember that a well-developed student doesn't necessarily mean that they know everything. We need to spend a little more time creating open conversation around the lesson focus and apply conversations to their personal opinions and experiences. Running through a lesson is going to affect the students in the long run. Lest we remember that every lesson is connected within a unit, there's an invisible thread that runs through every class, through every lesson. And speeding through a lesson today may affect another lesson in the future when you need to either review or apply the content learned in this lesson. So speeding could also lead to the students' lack of confidence in themselves. It could affect their confidence in the language when they suddenly caught off guard because the teacher sped through something on the assumption that the student was progressing.
Okay, I got it. Thank you for your answers, Katrina, Marco, both of you. And now a question, like not about theory, about your own, ideas, criteria maybe. How do you personally choose the speed of covering materials with your students? Katrina, can you be the first?
Yes, sure. I guess I feel like I'm cheater here because my first answer would be just my intuition, which is not that trustworthy, but still maybe experience and intuition helps. Sometimes we really see that we need to slow down the lesson, we need to give time, we need to refresh something, and that is again just because of the personal communication with the student. Also, again, students' feedback is important because sometimes they here it's my philosophy again, the atmosphere is the key and it always saves the lesson. So if the atmosphere is fine, that's sometimes okay to say like, aren't we too fast here? Do you feel fine? Are you fine? Are you okay here? Don't you want to repeat that? Don't you want me to slow down my language? Like whatever. So, and if our student feels fine with us and he feels safe, of course, they will tell us the truth, like, out of material, help me, or like, no, that's easy peasy, let's go on. So here you may rely on their answer if you trust your student and if the level of student is pretty high. And again, offer additional practice, additional experience, try something new will also help you, because that's how we may evaluate how well our student really may understand the language. Because like one thing we are doing like stated exercises, but the other thing when we try to imitate whatever real thing, that may really help.
Okay, thank you. Marco, what about your pieces of advice? How do you choose the speed of materials?
You caught me off guard. I was listening so attentively to Katerina. I can't really offer a foolproof method here, as I have developed my intuition after 12 years of teaching, and I completely agree with Katerina on that one. That intuition is key. But I can offer this look. I always start my classes with a good conversation, open topic about what they're up to, and then just on the slide, very quietly, slide in conversation based on our topic during this chat. And from the get-go, this will already tell me how familiar they are with the concept. This will give me the slightest of hints at where they are at the moment in their journey. And I absolutely, unequivocally, never, ever skip the vocab practice or the vocab introduction and the grammar exercises. These are crucial. These are absolutely crucial. Depending on our focus for the lesson, though, then I may spend a little bit more time on certain exercises like audios and videos and following exercises, and leave the reviews for the next class or send them as homework.
Okay, I got it. Thank you for your tips, for pieces of advice. Intuition, yeah, it's actually quite interesting point, yeah, because like, yeah, we also need to check how it works and if we're okay with that. But anyway, can you please share any interesting or challenging cases from your practice? I see that Katerina has already found something in her mind.
Yeah, from the very beginning today, I remembered that idea about like having an IELTS. Basically, that was not just from the air. It was almost a real case. My student, who is still my student, so like we are together, he's fine. He had a really strange task. He had to enter the international team, and his English was like elementary, I guess, maybe even lower. So yeah, that was pretty hard. We really struggled with that, but we did it. Finally, he got pretty nice feedback from the interview and the recommendation to improve his English. So, of course, he bought lessons here with us, with our school, and continued developing that. Yeah, but that was pretty scary for me because that was like first meeting, and he's like, no time for introduction. I have an interview in 2 weeks or like whatever. So we organized like some technical things. I helped him. I really helped him in advance and during the interview. So that was funny. And yeah, pretty strange, but successful.
Yeah, good that now you say that it was funny. Yeah. I suppose at that moment it was quite tough, but anyway, Marco, I'm pretty sure that you also have some interesting cases.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I'm listening to Katerina and I'm thinking, this is a perfect metaphor for baptism by fire. While Katerina was talking, a specific student came to mind. I had a very specific student that came to mind, which I actually spoke about very briefly in our previous podcast. I'm going to give you her story, because this, I have to say, of my 12 years of teaching, 20,000 hours, what have you, this has been my proudest moment to date. And it happened recently within the past year. So her name is Clarissa. She's Brazilian, lives in Portugal, speaks only Portuguese. And Clarissa joined the company and had 3 teachers prior to coming to. And she didn't do well with any of their classes. So obviously the amazing support we had, customer support, managed to convince her to give the school one more try and sent it to me. And I could tell from the instant that we spoke that she had lost confidence. She was tired of trying, had lost all hope and confidence. She was defeated. And immediately within our first 5 minutes of conversation and intro, she told me she didn't like English and she was wasting her time. That was her intro to me. And bearing in mind that this is an academic in the psychology field, so she's a highly intellectual person whose life revolves around learning. And our first class turned out to involve a very long conversation about all her issues, all her concerns. And I just very calmly supported her, reaffirmed her feelings, made myself understandable so that she could speak to me. I spoke to her very slowly. And after that, I suggested an action plan. She had 3 months to learn English. And here's the amazing part. She was going to present her thesis on IDD in children and teenagers, which means children with intellectual deficit disorders. Mm-hmm. So her research into this is about how we can teach children with IDD, how we can treat them, how we can incorporate them into society so that they are fully functional members of society. And this was to be presented to a World Health Organization conference in New York. So again, baptism by fire. When she said that to me, I got worried. I didn't show it, but I got a little worried, to be honest. Our first week, we had 2 lessons where I covered basic grammar and construction, which she would need for her presentation. And I focused solely on her why she's learning English, instead of covering the full picture. Just the why. That was our first plan. And from the second week onwards, we had 3 to 4 lessons a week. I chose the English for Medicine unit, which just to cut myself short very quickly, I absolutely love these units. The English for medicine, English for finance, English for marketing, they're amazing. But anyway, I chose this unit because it comprised a lot of the vocabulary that she would need. And slowly and with great care and reassurance, she started to get her confidence back, very slowly, but it started coming back. And I never strayed. My goal was focusing always on the why. And we even had her husband come into class one day, and he's a polyglot. He speaks 5 languages. That is so amazing. He came to class just to praise us for the physical transformation he'd seen in his wife, because her confidence in learning English was getting better. And that is such an important factor. By the second last week before the presentation, we began to focus on the content. We rehearsed, we practiced, we role-played panel questions. And on the afternoon of the day of the presentation, I actually received via WhatsApp a video recording of her speech. And I still get goosebumps. I was in absolute awe. I was blown away. My goosebumps just didn't stop. And she not only delivered her speech with confidence, but she used all the technical terms, she used all the medical terms, she used all the research language, and answered all the questions that were posed to her. So not only that, but because we built a relationship together, and this is why what Katerina said earlier was very important to me, is when she said, we are together, student and teacher, you become a unit. So having gotten to know her so well, I recognized immediately the pride in her smile as she spoke. And I could see that she was finally like, I did this.
Oh, so inspiring. I suppose actually these are the moments why we love our job, yeah, like why we love
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
cool. Yeah. I hope that your stories will motivate our teachers as well. By the way, Marco, I have one question for you from our audience. You've mentioned that like the first lessons you covered some grammar with your student, and some teachers ask that they have students who refuse to do any grammar practice, and they say that no, let's like do it like faster, better. I don't have time for grammar. Is it all right, or like what can we tell them? Like,
we do get that often, and I'll tell you why we get that often, Kate, is because unfortunately we are all English teachers, so I think we are allowed to say this because we are title holders. English grammar can be very daunting. It can be very difficult. So when learners come into class, they have that block. I don't want to touch grammar. Okay, so it's about simplifying, and it's happened to me before where students will say, Marco, please, I don't want to touch grammar. I don't want to look at it. I'll say, okay, fine. We're not going to explain it now. We're not going to go into in-depth content now, but we are going to just quickly read through. We have the grammar introduction section in all our lessons, in all our units. And I get them to read the first column, not the second column. So not the examples, just the definitions, and they read through it. Okay, so it's like planting a seed. Just plant that seed in there for now, and then go through the lesson and make a mental note, or just write in your private notes which grammar points you covered. And as you're going through the lesson and you're covering language and you're covering vocabulary, you say to them, remember you read about present perfect, for example. You just read that in a sentence. And they go, oh, okay. So, I'm all about simplicity. I'm all about simplifying it because that's how I learn, through simplification. I'm not a highly intellectual person. I just know how to simplify things. And I do the same with my students. So I hope that helps.
Okay. So I hope that your piece of advice will help our teachers, and they also will find the way how to make it, I don't know, easier for students, or just like show them, this is like one. Okay, thank you so much. So unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time, but still, I have one more question for you. And I'd like to know if you have any other comments or tips which will be useful for our teachers. Katerina, do you have anything to add?
I think that we may summarize everything we have already said today and just inspire all our colleagues to be friends, to be like leaders, not teachers, mentors for our students, and to bring the peaceful and nice and productive, inspiring atmosphere, and encourage our students to develop English, not like to study or learn, but to develop their skills due to their necessities. So that's what we, I guess, can do, and that what really will help to improve lessons, to improve the quality.
Okay, thank you. Marco, do you have any other recommendations?
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with Katerina. Beautifully said. I don't have so much of a comment to add, but more of a request. And that is to all the teachers that are in the podcast with us now. Sorry about that. I have another one after this. The teachers that are here now, and for the teachers that will be watching and listening to this podcast in the future, please never lose your patience. It's very easy to lose your patience. You need to watch yourself. Do not be sarcastic or condescending. That is terrible. When I'm with friends, I have a very sarcastic sense of humor. But there's a saying that goes that sarcasm is the saddest sense of intellect. Don't be sarcastic with your students. Don't be condescending. Don't use things like, Oh, really? Oh, no. Oh, really? Don't speak like that. It's condescending. Take your time with students, explain everything in simple terms, like I already said, irrespective of your students' level. Even if they are advanced or proficient, keep it simple. You don't want to over-intellectualize it. Rather than have them tell you you're speaking too simply or too slowly, rather have them tell you that than have them shut down because they don't understand you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my request.
Mm-hmm. Okay, actually, really useful recommendations, especially like I couldn't agree more about patience. Really important. Yeah, doesn't matter what speed of lessons and like speed of covering materials you have, too fast or too slow. It's important to stay patient. Yeah, to be as a friend, as Katrina said, as a leader, not as a mentor, etc. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for your answers. Now, as I have already told you, our time is up, unfortunately. Dear guests, our dear listeners, thank you so much for being with us here. Now, in the chat, you can find the link for the feedback form. And please find 2 minutes to fill it in because your comments are really important for us. And don't forget to subscribe our channel, not to miss our next podcast, which are also going to be very interesting and useful. So, Katerina, Marco, thank you so much for your information, for your tips and recommendations, for your inspiring stories. It was really cool to hear. So now then, unfortunately, we need to finish. So I hope that you will have a great day today, perfect weekend if you have one, yeah, and have a nice mood, have a perfect time with your students, and see you in our next podcast.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.